Fox Hollow Farm, a sprawling, luxurious estate tucked away in the quiet Indiana countryside. For years, it was just a wealthy family's private home. It had giant windows overlooking a peaceful forest and a stunning indoor swimming pool that seemed to glow at night. But behind its manicured lawns and expensive stone walls, this mansion was hiding one of the darkest secrets in American true crime history. It was the personal playground of a serial killer. The story begins with Herbert Baumeister, a man who, on the surface, appeared to be the very definition of suburban success. He was a businessman, a husband, and a father to 3 children. He owned a thriving chain of thrift stores and presented himself as a quirky but hardworking entrepreneur. But people who knew Herb closely started to notice something wasn't quite right. His behavior grew increasingly strange. He avoided intimacy with his wife, Julie, and seemed to isolate himself from friends. He would spend long stretches of time just wandering the woods on his property, all alone. His moods shifted violently. He began drinking heavily. It became clear that he was living a life full of secrets that even his own family didn't dare to question. While Herb was unraveling in private, a disturbing pattern was emerging in the nearby city of Indianapolis. Young men from the local gay community were vanishing without a trace. They were last seen leaving clubs or bars, often with someone who blended icily into the crowd. At first, their disappearances weren't connected, but one detective, Mary Wilson, started to see a frightening pattern. The victims were all in the same age range, vanished from the same locations, and had similar last-known movements. She was convinced a serial predator was operating in the area, but with no bodies, she had no case. She had a theory, but no proof. Her big break came when a man stepped forward, claiming he had survived a terrifying encounter with someone he knew only as Brian Smart. According to this survivor, Brian had invited him back to a large, beautiful home located far outside the city. But once they were there, the encounter turned violent. The man barely escaped with his life. Sometime later, he saw Brian Smart again, only this time he saw his real name, Herbert Baumeister. Detective Wilson finally had a suspect, but every attempt she made to search the Baumeister property was blocked. Herb was an influential figure, well-connected, and on the surface, a respectable member of the community. The police needed more than just one man's story, and they ended up getting it from a completely unexpected source. Julie Baumeister, Herb's wife, had been ignoring the warning signs for years. She chalked up his bizarre behavior to stress from his business and general mental strain. But one day, while Herb was away on a trip, she was out exploring the property with their son. Near a pile of dirt and debris, her son picked up what he thought was a weird stick. Julie froze. It wasn't a stick, it was a human bone. And as she looked around, she realized it wasn't the only one. Scattered all across the woods were more fragments, small, bleached, and unmistakably human. This horrifying discovery forced Julie to finally face the truth she could no longer deny. She immediately contacted detectives and granted them full permission to search the entire property. What investigators then uncovered at Fox Hollow Farm shocked even the most seasoned professionals. Behind the deck of the indoor swimming pool, underneath the trees, in fire pits, strewn across the wooded part of the 18-acre, a spot where thousands of bone fragments. Forensic analysis later determined they were enough to represent at least 11 different men. Some of the remains were partially burned. Others were scattered far and wide, as if someone had made a desperate, repeated effort to destroy the evidence over time. It became sickeningly clear that Fox Hollow Farm wasn't just Herb Baumeister's home. It was his hunting ground. Detectives now believe Herb lured his victims by presenting himself as friendly, harmless, and charismatic. He would offer them drinks, a ride home, or a casual invitation to hang out at his place outside the city. By the time anyone realized the true danger they were in, it was far too late. Herb controlled the entire environment. The home was isolated, silent, and surrounded by acres of dense forest, with no neighbors close enough to hear a thing. When the investigation finally closed in on him, with a warrant for his arrest finally on its way, Herb Funniken, instead of facing justice, he fled Indiana and traveled across the country. He ended up in Ontario, Canada, where he checked into a small park. There, he wrote a short note, blaming his problems on financial stress and a failing marriage. He made no mention of the victims. He offered no confession. Then, he ended his own life. With Herb Baumeister dead, the victims' families were left with agonizing questions that would never be answered. How many lives did he actually take? Investigators officially linked him to at least a dozen victims whose remains were found at Fox Hollow, but many believe the real number could be far higher. Some even suspect he may be connected to a series of unsolved murders of young men along the lines of antiquator, a theory that investigators still debate to this day. Fox Hollow Farms still stands. In the years since the murders, new owners have reported a slew of strange phenomena: disembodied noises, shadowy figures, and ebon full-bodied apparitions. These claims have turned the mansion into a hotspot for paranormal investigators, drawn to the dark energy that seems to linger there. Whether these experiences are truly supernatural or just the psychological echoes of tragedy, one thing is certain: the darkness that once lived inside those walls has left a permanent and chilling mark. The Fox Hollow murders remain one of the most haunting stories in American true crime, a terrifying reminder that sometimes the most perfect homes hide the most terrifying secrets. Thanks for watching. If you found this story as unsettling as I did, be sure to subscribe for more deep dives into the shadows of history.